Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. These are the post-fight reviews for the fights in Ukraine involving Vladislav Sirenko. You also had Oleksandr Teslenko returning from almost 2 years out of the ring, and also prospect Igor Shevadzutskiy. So he was in probably one of the worst officiated fights that I've ever seen, and we will come to that. But we'll start with the main event, Vladislav Sirenko versus Newfel Ouatah. So this was always shaping as a fight where Sirenko was going to have success in there. Newfel Ouatah is a guy that's, when he's fought at any real level, has come up short. He was stopped by Junior Farr. This is back in 2019, I should say. Stopped in a round. Previously had lost to the likes of Johan Durpa as well and Erkan Tepe. So I wasn't expecting this to go too many rounds. I thought eventually Sirenko would catch up with him, especially with the left hook. But even Sirenko's performance surprised me to some extent, because he was obviously intent on making a statement. Unusually aggressive, not even really using the jab, throwing lead left hooks, throwing big shots, power shots, looking to get Ouatah out of there. Not so much from the first round, that was more that sort of coming forward, a bit of a feel-out process. Even then, though, he wasn't setting up his shots too much behind the jab. It was just throwing lead left hooks. But round two, he came out super aggressive. It was like a switch had been flipped, and he was just after Newfel Ouatah. And he actually had a lot of success in there, but he was eating some shots on the way in too. Like Newfel Ouatah was managing to catch him, not just with jabs, but Sirenko was open to the uppercut and caught with it a number of times. But he didn't seem to be too bothered by what was coming back at him, just coming in straight in and letting his hands go. And ultimately, a couple of knockdowns in this round two for Vladislav Sirenko. The first one, left hooks, sort of setting it up. The second one, it was a couple of right hands, and then obviously followed up with a number of other punches. Ouatah both times sinks to the canvas, and the body language wasn't looking good from Newfel Ouatah. You sort of thought, is he starting to look for a way out? It doesn't look like the body language is good there. Didn't look like this one was going to continue for too much longer. But that second round must have taken a bit out of Sirenko, because the third round, it felt like it was a recovery round. The volume of his punches was way down. The pace was way down. He was still working inside and having some success, but it just sort of seemed like he was biding his time. Round four, this is where it all ended. A body shot drops Ouatah, sinks to the canvas again, and it didn't look like the hardest shot. I mean, sometimes they don't have to be, but it looked like he was done and didn't want to beat the count, even though he looked like he probably could have beaten the count. So, yeah, it was all over, waved off. Sirenko advances to 17-0. And I guess you have to sort of say, on the defensive end, it was a pretty sort of sloppy night. On the entertainment front, it was mostly a win, because I enjoyed the performance, the aggression, but he's obviously got to mix and balance the two, defense and his offense, because you can't be doing some of what he was doing at a higher level and expect to get away with it. Against a guy like Newfel Ouatah, who seems to be selling and trading on a decent-ish record, you can get away with that. But against better guys, not so much. But Sirenko, who really hasn't impressed in too many recent fights. I mean, he's been going the distance after basically having a lot of good stoppages, a lot of impressive-looking wins against lower-tier opposition. When he's sort of been up in the sort of levels of journeyman, his performances have tapered off a little bit, and he hasn't been able to get stoppages. So, the last couple of fights in particular, Konstantin Dobyshenko, he's a tough journeyman, but he wasn't able to put a dent in him. Kamil Sokolowski, that one also went the distance. There are other prospects out there who have been stopping Sokolowski, but Sirenko just looks so in those performances, despite, winning most of those rounds against Sokolowski, all of them on the judges' scorecards. Against Doboshenko, he was actually really hurt in that fight too, and it was a very close and competitive fight. One judge only had 1 point in it, and the others, did give rounds to Doboshenko. But anyway, getting back to this fight, he did what he had to do. He went in there, obviously looking to hurt him, get him out of there, and ultimately he was able to do that in 4 rounds. So in some regard, it was a decent performance. I enjoyed it from the entertainment standpoint, the aggression. Haven't seen some of that like this from Vladislav Sirenko for a few fights. He sort of threw caution to the wind, and ultimately it did pay off, but let's keep expectations in check given the opposition in this fight. But yeah, it was good to see after a few sort of so-so performances coming back, getting a stoppage, and I'm sure that'll be good for his confidence. So what next? I mean, based on that, probably still a few more fights at a similar sort of level before being stepped up further. We'll have to see what they throw up for him, because it sort of seems the past 2.5 years, a lot of the opposition from about fight 10 onwards has been much for muchness. I mean, I don't really want to say this was a step up for him. It just kind of felt like it was more of the same to some degree. But anyway, moving on. So you had Oleksandr Teslenko. He was returning following his sort of upset loss to Shaundell Winters, which was in 2019. Didn't fight in 2020. So this fight here in June 2021, almost out 2 years since that upset loss. And it was a good confidence builder. He was facing, I've just got to make sure that I get the name right here, Cesaz David Crenz. And, for the first round or so, it was pretty sedate sort of stuff. Trading jabs, they were also trading body shots as well. Teslenko, wasn't pressing the action too much. He was looking to have a good look at him. But you could sort of tell from round 2 onwards that there was more intent, that Teslenko was looking, for Crins a lot more. There was a lot of nice right hands to the body that were landing. He was really investing in the body with jabs too. It was good to see there. And a couple of times, Crins, and it was really bizarre actually. He'd sort of take a shot, didn't look like a big shot, and then he would literally turn around and walk away, like for some sort of short breather or respite. It was just really just like, out of nowhere it would happen, and it was like, what's going on here? And in round 2, he was dropped with a left to the body. It was a beautifully delivered liver shot. And also he was dropped at the bell. But the referee kind of, you could see he was considering, do I rule this a knockdown? And it looked like he was about to, and then he thought better of it, and there was no knockdown. And round 3 was where it ended, so there was a knockdown before the stoppage, so a left-right-left sort of combination to the body. It drops Crins. He does beat the count, but he's looking worse for wear, and ultimately, with his hands coming down shortly afterwards, he was open upstairs, and he was dropped with a right hand, counted out all over. So I don't want to say that we can sort of take too much from this performance because, Teslenko out for a couple of years. Crins was a journeyman with 15 losses on the record. He didn't, apart from round 1 where Teslenko wasn't really pushing things, didn't really offer too much, didn't throw too many shots, just sort of seemed content to whatever was happening from the opposite side. He would just sort of cope with it as it came at him. So it's a confidence booster for Teslenko. Maybe he'll end up having another 1 or 2 of these before they step him up again. I mean, at one point, Teslenko was, quite a hyped prospect, but obviously losing to Shaundell Winters, gassed badly in that one and then was stopped. I think hopefully in the past 2 years, he's been working on his cardio because that really let him down in that Winters fight. Hopefully see him again soon. And then you had Igor Shevadzutskiy, and this was a strange and bizarre fight. So he was facing a guy called Paata Aduashvili. And Adishvili just kept hitting the canvas, and they kept being ruled slips, even though you could clearly see, the guy's balance wasn't great. There was one of them early on, because there was 3, was it in the first round, I think it was, knockdown, in terms of he hit the canvas. One of them, clearly, Adishvili was a little bit off balance, and he just got clipped with a right hand, and he went down. And the referee didn't rule it a knockdown. None of them were ruled a knockdown when at least two of them probably were. And it just kept continuing in the fight. There was a body shot in round 2 that dropped Adishvili, and it was ruled a slip. And, after that, Shevardutsky was just like, well, bugger this for a joke, just barreling forward, landing shots, and he actually dropped Adishvili, and it was ruled a knockdown. But after that knockdown in round 2, the legit knockdown, not the one that wasn't ruled a knockdown, you had Adishvili just kind of like, well, bugger this as well. I'm just going to, let my hands go. So he looked like a man possessed for about 20 or 30 seconds, really putting it on Igor Shevadzutskiy. And then Shevardutsky himself, and he did slip on one of those sort of signs that was ringside, sort of backing up on the ropes, back foot caught, and he went down. Also ruled a slip. I mean, how many slips were in this fight? It wasn't funny. And then later in the round, Adishvili is dropped with a right uppercut, literally landed on the button, and the ref rules it a slip. But then looking at Adishvili, who is on the canvas looking worse for wear, like he can't continue, the referee goes, oh, something actually is happening here, and he starts administering the count. It was just absolutely diabolical refereeing, and I hope that guy, the ref, is sanctioned, because it was disgusting. There were multiple obvious knockdowns. It was just everything was ruled a slip. But ultimately, despite the shenanigans, Shevardutsky comes through and he advances to 8-0, I should say. So, number of Ukrainians at the moment, number of prospects, different fighters coming through. We'll have to see how far they can go. But it was a weird and entertaining fight all at the same time. Teslenko, he comes back, gets the win, and Vlad Sirenko, unusually aggressive, trying to walk through his opponent Newfel Ouatah, ultimately stops him in 4 rounds. And actually, if you haven't caught the Shevardutsky and Teslenko fights, you can get them on the B1 Boxing channel. So those two are on that undercard. The main event was televised on Inter, the Ukrainian channel, so not sure where you can find that. But a couple of those undercard fights, Shevardutsky and also Teslenko, are there, and there was 1 or 2 other lower level heavyweight fights as well. But drop a comment loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.